Hello, it has been so long since I've made a video, so this feels a little weird, but I wanted to share my birth story with you and with hopes that it'll just stay on the internet forever so that I will remember every single detail by retelling it, and I can watch it back as well whenever I want. I gave birth on June 1st. It was a Sunday, so that was 5.5 weeks ago now because today is July 9th. And it's a Wednesday. I was in labor for 19 hours, which sounds like a long time, but I thought that it went by really fast because there's always something that's happening. And I'll probably say this a lot, but obviously everything is just my experience and my opinions. So it might sound like 19 hours is a long time for you, but for me, it does sound like a long time, but it went by really fast. We can start at the very beginning. On May 31st, it was a Saturday, and I woke up at like 5 a.m. and I had like 2 or 3 minor cramps, like not even close to a period cramp. It was literally like on a scale of 1 to 10, it was like a 0. But you know, when you are thinking like, oh, could this be the start of something? Like, is something happening? Because at that point, I was 39 weeks. Our baby boy was due on June 6th, which would be the Friday afterwards. I started getting a bit excited, and I do want to say that I kind of just overshare everything. So if it's TMI, like it's a birth story video, I feel like they're all gonna be TMI if you want to get to the good stuff. So when I woke up and I thought that my water had broke because it wasn't like any type of gush or anything, but like there's something that kind of dripping. So I wasn't really sure, and since I was getting a few cramps, I was like, could this be, is this it? You know? Then I had a lot of Braxton Hicks throughout the end of my pregnancy where my belly would just get really tight. So towards the end of it especially, it was happening like more frequently, and on the Saturday morning at 5 it was happening more and more. But they say that Braxton Hicks are just like the fake contractions, so real contractions will be timed out a bit better, so it would be like every 2 minutes or every 3 minutes and things like that. And I didn't feel like mine were in like any sequence, so I just thought that it was the fake contractions. So all morning I was awake starting at 5 a.m, which is crazy for how long this story goes, how long this day was. So I woke up at 5, and Curtis, my husband, went to work because we were kind of unsure, and I'm like, no, just go, like if anything you can just come home. And I just kept having the Braxton Hicks, but I probably only had like 3 cramps the whole day, so I was like, oh well, this isn't anything. I was having more and more Braxton Hicks, but like I said, I had been having those for quite a few weeks now. When I went to the doctors on the Wednesday before, they said I was dilated 0.5 centimeter, so I wasn't really expecting much at all. And then Curtis came home around like 1 or 2 because I just kept having them, but like I said, they weren't in any type of sequence or anything. So I was like, I don't know, when we were kind of debating, like, should we go to the hospital? And the only reason that I wanted to go was because I was worried that my water broke. My doctor had said that if your water breaks, you should go basically straight away because then you could be at risk for infection because everything's open, basically. So that's what I was kind of concerned about. I didn't just want it to break and then just wait. And they say just to go into the triage, that's what they call it, just to get checked up and make sure everything is okay. So that is what we did. It was about 4:30, and we did go back and forth on it because I'm like, when we get there, it's gonna take so long and blah, 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 you know, and I just really didn't think that anything was gonna happen. So we still brought our stuff. I didn't really bring as much as we had planned to bring because I was convinced we were gonna be at home that evening. I was like, we're gonna get there and they're just gonna send us back home and this is a waste of time. Then we go to the hospital. We get there at like 4:30 on Saturday, and we go to the triage center. The hospital was so nice. It wasn't busy there at all. I thought that we would have to wait for hours. I don't know why, I just assumed that we would have to wait, but nobody was there. It was just us, so that made it go a bit fast. And then I went into that room and laid down, and they put 2 monitors on me. So one for my contractions and then one for the baby. I don't know if it was his heart rate or if it was just his movements or something like that. I think it might have been his heart rate. And when the nurse put that on, her face was so funny. She was like, do you feel that? And I was like, well, yeah, like I feel some tightening, and then some of them I didn't really feel yet. So like I said, it was kind of just random for me. There was no timing about it. But when she put it on the monitor, it was like every 2 minutes, like every 2 or 3 minutes. And she was like, so you haven't really been feeling that? And I was like, well, I just thought they were Braxton Hicks because there was no, what's the word? I keep saying it, like a sequence or a pattern or anything like that. They were just random. And also some of my friends had told me that the difference between the contractions and Braxton Hicks would also be that you would feel like cramping and stuff like that. And like I said, I didn't really have any of that. Anyway, the nurse was shocked by that. So then they brought the doctor in because obviously she didn't want to make a call or anything, I guess, even though I'm sure it was all over her face that she was like, oh yeah, I think this is happening. And then the doctor came in and she checked how much I was dilated, and it was 4 centimeters. And 4 days before that, I was only ½ a centimeter. So I really thought I had a long way to go, but it turns out he was ready to come. Once the doctor checked me, she said I was 4 centimeters, and she just goes, yeah, you're being admitted, you're in labor. And I was like, I'll try to find a picture and put it in of my face. This is the face I made for like 2 or 3 minutes. I was so shocked. Then the doctor said that the only difference between Braxton Hicks and contractions is if you are dilating, and the only way to check that is obviously by going to get checked. So once all of that happened, they moved me to the labor and delivery room, which we were there for, like I said, about 19 hours. The first thing that she did, well, first of all, I called my family and I'm like, guys, it's happening. And they knew that we were gonna go to the hospital, but we weren't planning on having them come up, of course. So then I called them straight away and I'm like, it's happening, it's go time. So then they finished eating, they drove up. They got here about like 9:30, so we had been in the room for quite a few hours at that point. But like I said, it just went by really fast. So the first thing that she did, if I remember right, is set up my IV. No, I had to shower first. So I had to have a full shower. The room was really nice. I don't know if I have any videos of it. I'll try to put some in. I showered and got changed into the gown, and then they started an IV, which I never had one before, but I feel like throughout being pregnant, you get like a lot of needles. And I was so shocked that we were there that it didn't even bother me. So if you're kind of like even worried about that, I get it, because I was worried about that too, but I didn't even think about it. So straight in my hand. You can feel it at first. It's kind of like, oh, something's in there, but like after a while, there's a lot happening, so you don't really care about that. Somebody came in to do an ultrasound just to see how big our baby was and if everything was going to be okay for a vaginal delivery. At that time, he was measuring to be 38 weeks. So then they thought that my due date was June 14th, but the doctor said it was June 6th, so I don't know. Don't really think it matters. I was there having him anyway. After all of that was said and done, we were kind of just hanging out for the first, I don't know, few hours really. Like they gave me the Pitocin, they started that. That's what that doctor liked to do. And I mean, I was just chilling there. I'm not gonna say no. Like I said, it was pretty chill. Like my family came in to hang out for a few hours. I was still able to do things, like it wasn't really hurting that bad. It was cool because you could see the contractions on the monitor. So like my husband and my family was like, oh, we can see that there's one there. So when it started to get a little bit more intense, I was like, ooh, we just breathe through that one. But I was on like one of those bouncy balls, so that helped a little bit. They let me eat as well when I got there because we were gonna go and eat afterwards. After we went to the hospital, we were gonna go and eat, but of course that didn't happen. So we managed to eat something just while we were there at like 8 o'clock or something. But the clock in the hospital room was broken, so I have no concept of time at all. Like I was hardly on my phone. We brought so much stuff to the hospital, I didn't even touch any of it. I think the only thing that I used was a hospital gown that I had brought because it was really soft. And obviously the ones at the hospital are like pretty rough. I can't think of anything else that I wore or used. I brought a dressing gown, slippers, like games for us to play to be distracted by. No, I didn't touch any of those things. Of course, as time went on, my contractions started to build and build. I would say there was a point, maybe it was like 4 a.m. Again, I really don't have any concept of what time it was. We did get to see the fireworks from the hotel. we got to see the fireworks from the hospital room, which was really nice. As my contractions continued to build, I would say it got really bad for about an hour. Maybe that was like 4 or 5 a.m. So as they were like building and building, for me, it was really all in my hips. Like it felt like somebody was pushing them together, and they were just like, I don't think I was shaking, but it felt like someone was just like shaking me and pushing them together, and it was so much pressure there. I didn't feel any like cramping. I didn't really have much back pain. It was like in my thighs too. So it was in my thighs and my hips. So that wasn't very fun. But it was just really bad for that hour. I, of course, was very nervous about the epidural. It doesn't sound very fun, but I knew I always wanted to do the epidural, but I kind of wanted to see how long I could go without it, which is silly. Next time, I'll be doing that much sooner than that. But basically my contractions were starting to get bad, so I had one of the IV drips that they said you could do, like gas and air or one of the IV drips, so I just went with that to start off to see how it would go. For me, I think I just waited too long because it lasted for like 5 minutes and then it was just so bad. Basically, it felt like you're really dizzy, not dizzy, but just like, ooh, for like 5 minutes from my experience, and then it just immediately wore off, and it was very painful. So at that point I was like, okay, let's do the epidural, but it takes about an hour for them to prepare it because they have to, you know, they're giving it to other patients too. They have to get the anesthesiologist, they have to prepare the epidural, come and do it and all that stuff. That was a painful hour and I won't forget that. So I think if I would have done the epidural instead of the IV drip, I was just nervous, so I didn't want to, but if I would have just done it, then I think I could have avoided all of this. But anyway, so I think it was like 5 a.m. or something, and they came in to do the epidural and I was panicking. I was sat on the bed, so they raised me up pretty high because of course it has to go on your back, so the woman standing behind has to be at level, whatever. So they raised me up and I was sat like in a C shape. They kind of bent me over, and I thought that my contractions, I'm like, how am I gonna stay still when they hurt so bad? But it was just the weirdest thing, like everything stopped. It didn't hurt anymore. Like before she had even done it, it was like, I don't know if I locked in and I was just like, we're doing this, don't move. But I don't know, it was very strange. I thought that it would still be so painful and I would just be shaking like that with them, but nope. So I just kind of bent over, and as I was bent over, my feet were like tingling because I was basically leaning on them, you know, just when you get pins and needles. And I was so concerned about that for some reason, and then the nurse just kept asking me about my feet, and they're just amazing. They know how to distract you. She was like, oh, can you feel this foot? Oh, what about this one? Is that okay? Like she just kept going. I don't know. She was wonderful. And then they start with like a numbing thing in your back, like a needle, and I didn't really feel that at all. Like I said, I don't know what was going on inside my head, but I didn't really feel that. And then yeah, they put the epidural in and you just can't think about it. Of course you can't look, but even when they bring it in, it's like covered up in a towel, like they don't want you to see that. Once they put the epidural in, they put like this big plaster on your back, obviously, so it stays sticky, and then you get a button in case you want any more of it, which I completely forgot about the button. I don't know what, I mean, obviously I do know. I was very in pain. So when they were telling me that and I was just worried about the needle and all of this stuff, didn't really pay attention to that button, which will come into later in the story. So once they gave me the epidural, I kind of chilled out for a little bit, or so I thought. When I finally laid back, also before I move on, the epidural in my experience was no big deal. Shouts out to the woman who did it, it was great. I would 100% do it again. It makes me think about like, what was I so scared of? Because that was nothing. I get that it sounds scary, but coming from someone who hates needles, and I wasn't even scared of giving birth, I was scared of having that needle. Yeah, it was not a big deal at all. After that, we tried to sleep for a little bit because it finally had like calmed down. So I must have been laying there chilling for like 30 minutes, maybe an hour, I really don't know. And then the nurses kind of like burst through the door a little bit, like not with worry, but it was just loud, you know. She wasn't like, oh my God, is everything okay? She just kind of opened it and it like startled me. And then my water broke. And ew, that is so gross. If that happens in your bed, I'm so sorry. The way that it felt when it just went Oh my gosh, it was just like, not even like you're peeing and you can't stop, but then it just keeps going and going, and I was like, ew, it just felt so gross. Obviously nothing is painful about it, I was just like, ew, and it's just good, and you're just in the bleh. Anyway, the nurses are great. They of course cleaned everything up. I did miss out one thing. When you get an epidural, you also get a catheter, which is uncomfortable at first, but then you kind of just get over it. But yeah, my water, I think it broke because they kind of like, our heart rates, both of them, both mine and his, had finally like slowed down, and we were kind of like chilling. And then when she came through, I think it just like startled both of us. I don't know, maybe he broke it. I don't know how that works, but yeah, that's when it broke. But the nurse came through to tell me that our baby was kind of like chilled out too much, and I was like, what do you mean? We've just been so stressed out for the past however long, and we're finally, it was like 12 hours, and we're finally calming down. And she's like, oh, you need to move positions because he needs to be moving a bit more. We did that. We didn't really get any sleep at all. Mind you, I had been up since 5 a.m. the day before. Of course, that would happen that way. After that, I'm trying to think what happened. I know the nurses swapped over at 7, and she told us around like 8 o'clock that it would be time to start pushing soon. So they're always coming in to check how much you're dilated, which is kind of uncomfortable, but in the grand scheme of things, like, it's not a big deal. I just didn't enjoy it in the moment because they really check. So yeah, I just kept progressing, but then my contractions got to the point where they were just so close together that I wasn't really resting at all in between. So when the new nurse came in at 7, she kind of turned down the Pitocin so I could have more time to chill, and it really changed it for me. So I would say like this ending bit was the best part. Pushing was my favorite part, actually. So they said, if you have any family members, tell them to come down, like it's gonna be time to start pushing soon. And that was at maybe like 7:30, 8 o'clock. Not 100% sure, but it was in the morning. My family gets down here and I'm like slowly pushing because they don't want you to use all of your energy right away. So as the contractions were coming, it's weird because at first, like when there's a contraction, they're like, okay, just push, and you don't really feel the urge to as much. But then every contraction that comes, like as you're getting closer and closer, like you can't help but feel like you have to push. With the epidural, it didn't hurt, it was just pressure, which sometimes can be painful, if that makes sense. That was just my experience. I felt like I could move my legs, like I could still lift them. I'm sure the epidural helped out a lot down here, but yeah, as far as my legs went, that was something I thought of, like I wouldn't be able to move my legs, or they'd just be like dead. But I could lift them up and down, which is something that I mentioned before about having the button. I forgot that I could get more of that medicine. So basically, I don't know what measurements they used, but whatever it was, I had like 25 of that. So if it was like milliliter, no, I don't even know, but you get it. Like I had 25 of that and I had only used 8 of it because I just forgot I could press it. It was still fine. And then I just did those little pushes for a while as I got contractions. And then again, when it just got closer and closer and closer, and they're like, okay, it's really gonna be time. And then Kurt is holding my leg, the nurse is holding my other leg, and I'm trying to push. And then the midwife came in, and she was amazing. She made my experience so much better because I really need someone who's like, well, she wasn't screaming at me, but she was like motivating me. She's like, come on, you can do it. And she's telling me all these different positions to push in, and she gave me these, on the bed, it pops up, there's like 2 bars so you can like, you know, do one of those. And I think that was just my favorite part. Like everybody was there, we were excited. It was crazy, but we were all excited, and the midwife just made it so great. I was pushing for quite a while, and you can kind of like feel his head going like this a little bit, like inside, not outside, but and they're just saying, oh, we can see his head and he has brown hair and we can see it and he's coming out or whatever. And that's just crazy because you're laying there like, oh my gosh. And the urge to push is so strong that you do them in 3 pushes, like for 10 seconds, but I had to keep going because it was just so strong that you can't not push. And at 11:43 a.m. he came out and they placed him right on me, and it was insane. It's just such a shock when they just place the baby right on you. I mean, of course, he's been with us for 5.5 weeks now, so he's like my little best friend, and I know him so much. I know him so well, and we know each other so well. But in the beginning, it's like, oh my gosh, what what just happened? What did I just do? And they put him straight on me and he held my finger. If I have a picture out, well, we'll see what the picture is like. But he was just holding my finger straight away and he's just laying on me and he was so cute. And I was laying there like, and they put a little hat on his head and they go and measure him and all of that. And then you just get like an hour or two to sit with him on your chest. And that is the best part of the whole thing. That's why I think pushing is my favorite part. Especially since, you know, you're close to meeting your baby. And they're almost here, so yeah, then they put him right on me and I got to lay there for an hour or two. And then they move you over to the postpartum room, or I can't remember what they called it actually, but you get moved to a different room after 2 hours. When I first had to get up, they have like it's a very interesting device where you kind of like stand up and there's like I don't even know how to explain it. Like you basically stand on something and they just wheel you over to the bathroom so you don't have to walk, but you're not like sat as if it was a wheelchair. I don't know. When I did go to the bathroom, I almost passed out, but I hadn't eaten anything. I mean, I just pushed him out like 2 hours before that. And I was sat there and I'm talking to the nurse, she's trying to help me and I'm like, yeah, I think I'm gonna pass out. And she's like, what? And I'd never experienced that before, but I couldn't hear anything and I just started not to be able to see anything and I was just sat there like, yeah. And then she went to get me some orange juice and then I was okay. So that was fine, but you just did a big thing. And your body is like, what did we just do? When they took out the epidural, because that's something that I didn't think about, and at the time I was worried when they were gonna do it, and the thought, and it was just like gross. But no, I didn't feel a thing when they took it out. It was just the plaster that was on my back when she had to rip it off. And it was like being waxed and it hurt so bad. I'm like, just yank it off, like I can't. She's going so slow and I'm like, please just rip it off. Then once we got moved into the other room, we were there for 24 hours and then we got to go home. And I'm trying to think, they do a few tests for me and for the baby in the other room as well before you can go home. Otherwise, everything was great. The nurses were so nice. Our baby is very healthy, so am I. I'm so lucky to have had a good experience. And at first, I was very, what's the word? It was a lot. So that first week, especially that first day afterwards, I haven't talked to anybody about this, but I felt like I was still in labor and I don't know how to explain it because I mean I was just doing it for 19 hours, so you kind of get used to feeling like that. I don't know, but when I was trying to go to sleep, I was just having like all of these flashes of that whole day and it was just a lot at first, but then obviously you do get past it. That only lasted like 2 days or so, and then you kind of start to move on and you get to take your baby home. I think that is everything that happened. I'm trying to think of anything else of note, but like I mentioned, our hospital bag, we hardly used anything. We also brought a lot of snacks, but that was more so for after I gave birth or for Curtis when he got hungry. And they did supply us with meals every day, but at our hospital it wasn't best meals, so we kind of just had like Starbucks and I think we got Chipotle and like Chick-fil-A and stuff like that, so we just ate out for a bit. And actually I remember, which is so weird because if I am like worried or stressed out, like I never really feel hungry, but when I was pushing I was like, I'm hungry right now and I want to eat something, and I think that is the weirdest thing because it's so unlike me and out of character. But I think that is my whole story. I'm currently in baby boy's room. Maybe I'll have to make a video of his room as well so that I can remember it forever. Let me show you this really cute outfit really quick. Look, my sister got us this and how cute is it? I can't wait to put him in that, and it's so soft actually. Well, thank you so much for watching this video and congratulations if you are about to give birth. I promise that everything's gonna be okay, and it's so scary the first time. I didn't want to do it, but whatever happens, it's gonna go great. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.